Coaches. So what I want to go over today is what Conquest Format is. Conquest Format, I think, is something unique to Garden State Esports Middle School Rocket League. So I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. So what Conquest Format is a way that we've come up with getting more kids to participate in the starting lineup. Traditionally, Rocket League is meant to be 3 versus 3. Your best team plays my best team, and then whoever wins, wins the whole match. And what you'll notice, especially at the middle school level, is that a lot of kids will derive their satisfaction from esports depending on their starting ability. And so by increasing the roster to 15 starters by playing Conquest Format has really been beneficial for the last 2 years that we've done it. So let me do my best to explain what Conquest Format is. So basically, you have 15 kids on a starting roster, 5 teams of 3, and your team is going to play the opposing team, right? So we'll call these guys Team A in a best of 3. So Team A plays each other in a best of 3, Team B plays each other, Team C, Team D, Team E. Whoever wins the best of 3 earns, right, the win for that match or that match game in the series. And so what happens is the idea behind Conquest is we have 15 starters. They all play each other. Whoever wins the most best of 3s wins the series. Okay, so that's the idea behind Conquest. Some things to know. Again, a starting roster is 15. If you don't have 15 kids on your team, you are able to replay players. So let's say maybe you have 9, right? You got 3 teams of 3. You can replay these first 2 teams to fill out your roster of 15. So kids can play in more than one match. One thing that we ask is if you have a full roster of 15 kids that they all play, right? The idea behind Conquest isn't to get your best players playing multiple games, right? Again, this is the spirit of the game that we want to be involving as many kids as possible. So Conquest shouldn't be used as a way to manipulate or somehow get your best players constantly playing, right? If you have 15, you play all 15, even if they're, not the greatest on the team, right? They still play. And in the event, that you need to play a kid multiple times, we ask that you play everybody else first. So if these, again, you have 9 players, right? You could play this team A again here, but you don't want to play team A a second time, right? So it wouldn't go A, B, C, A, A. You basically want to make sure you play all of your kids. And if you need to, right, then you try to play them all again to fill out the match. And if you have any questions about that, reach out. It's not something that has ever been abused and not something I think is going to be abused, right? Because the idea here is to get more kids involved in the matches in your starting lineup. And so, we trust that you're going to do that, right? But understanding that each match is a best of 3, right? Team A plays Team A in a best of 3, Team B plays Team B for a best of 3, but the series is a best of 5. And so let's say, your team A wins, team B, your team B loses, C wins, D loses, E wins, right? You would win the series 3-2. Okay. So you're basically earning a point per win in these best of 3s. And so the series overall is a best of 5. One thing you want to keep in mind for the round robin, you have to play out the series. So even if you are winning 3-0, right, the game's not over. You still want to play these last 2 matches. Number one, so that way the kids get to play, but also number 2, we're going to look at wins and losses when it comes to seeding the tournament part. So even if you lose a bunch of matches, if you lose 2-3, you might get a higher seed than somebody who's losing, 0-5. So please make sure you play out the series in the round robin. When we have our tournament later in the season, if you want to play them out, I always encourage you because, again, the idea is here to get kids involved. So if you want to play them all out, even if they don't count like in the tournament, that's great. But please make sure these must be played out during the round robin first portion of our tournament. You can also play concurrently, right? Meaning if you have the equipment and it's possible, you can play these matches all at once, or you can play 2 or 3 at once. I typically play 2 at once. So that means A and B would be going down at the same time. So I, as a coach, would maybe watch Team A. The opposing coach would maybe watch Team B. And that's one way to shorten the length that this takes. I would say on average, without any tech difficulties, right, a best-of-5 conquest usually takes about an hour and a half. So if you have the equipment and the other team agrees, right, whatever you coaches can agree on, you are allowed to play these concurrently. Whether you play them all at once, where everybody's playing at the same time and reports their score afterwards, or sometimes I'll put a couple on stream. So maybe I stream the first 3 and then these 2 are being played while the stream is going on. However you want to do it, as long as they are all played out, you are allowed to play concurrently. After a match is over, I highly encourage everybody to take a screenshot. You can even have your players take screenshots, because when we go into our tournament reporting software, screenshots are highly encouraged but not mandatory. If there is a discrepancy when the coaches report the scores, we're going to go back to the screenshots. If we don't have the screenshots, well, then we're going to have to figure something else out. So I would suggest, especially if you're playing concurrently or anything like that, take a screenshot after each of the best of 3s. It's also a good way to keep track of your stats and stuff like that if you're into that. But more importantly, and well, I should say most importantly, please make sure you contact the opposing coach. You can reschedule a match during the week if that default time of Wednesdays at 3:30 doesn't work for you. I don't mind. Just make sure you let us know. But also, more importantly, make sure you were talking to the opposing coach, even the week before you guys are matched up to play against each other, to make sure everybody's on the same page. So you got to figure out who's going to make the match. You have to figure out, if they have a starting roster full of 15, or if not, how are the kids going to be broken up? You don't have to report, right, what kids are playing on what team. I think there's some strategy involved in how you spread out your talent, because the goal here is to win the best of 5. So it doesn't make sense to stack your first 2 teams and then you have, your last 3 teams who aren't really competitive. You're going to lose 2 to 3. So I like that idea of strategy. I'm not asking everybody to enter in their players and stuff like that. So we're going to be going on the honor system here. But please report anything that you think may qualify as misconduct, and we'll work through that. But I'm not expecting any issues. But the biggest thing is make sure you're in contact with the opposing coach, right, the week of at least your match, and so everybody is on the same page. And last but not least, make sure you know the rules. bit.ly/GSE Rocket League rules, RL rules, is our rule set. I'll be updating that as necessary throughout the season, but please familiarize yourself with things like disconnects is a big thing. If a kid disconnects, how you can proceed, right? If the kid is coming back, if the kid's not coming back, that's all the stuff that you kind of want to know beforehand, just to make sure that the kids know what to expect, the coach knows what to expect, you can anticipate any technical difficulties. Please be familiar with the rules before the season starts, before your matches start, and please reach out if you have any questions, okay? We're going to jump in game now, and we'll take a look and see if we are making the match, how we go about creating our private matches. So now that we're in game, let's walk through how we get everything set up. First and most important, you want to make sure you reach out to the opposing coach for the week of your matchup. I don't mind if you reschedule games as long as they're played that week. So make sure you make contact with the coach, make sure the schedule works for everybody, and you also want to decide who is going to set up the match. If you can't agree, we could go with the home team, but really for either person, we're going to go to play. We're going to go to custom games, private match, and then if you're making the match, we're going to go to create private match. The default settings are basically what we're going for here. We want to go soccer. I like to go to DFH Stadium, right? That's going to be your main stadium. You'll find in the the Rocket League rules if you want to pick a different stadium, but DFH Stadium is nice because it's the brightest. 3v3. No bots. We're going to be on US East, and you want to make sure that it is joinable by name and password. We're going to go to team settings, and here's where you can name the teams. I always like to set this up so that way the kids know what side they're going to log into. So you can change the team names to whoever you're playing. If you want to change the primary colors, you can. And then you have your mutator settings. This basically wants to go to mostly default for everything, but let me give you one tip. You do not want to change the series length to best of 5, because remember, for this first round robin part of the tournament, we're going to play out the best of 5. So even if you're losing 3-0, you're still going to play the last 2 matches, because that's going to help you get a seed. But you'll see otherwise everything is set to basically default, 5-minute times, unlimited, everything default, no rumble settings, boost strength is at 1, default, respawn at 3. And if you're ever unsure, just always go back and hit restore to defaults. And then last but not least, it's going to ask you to create a match, and that's when you would set the name and password. You want to make sure the name and password is something that's easy to share, because both teams are going to have to log in. And so once you set that up, you're going to want to tell the opposing team, right, what the name and password is. But now that we're in game, this is actually the most important part. You want to make sure your kids understand that they cannot join a side until everybody is in. Right, so first know that it's 3v3, and then you have 2 extra spots, right? So you can have a total of 8 people in a game spectating or playing. So hopefully you'll have at least 1 coach in the match. But the biggest thing, and where we have had the biggest headache in the past, is that a kid logs in, doesn't wait to be told to go by their coach, and then hurry up and just joins the team. And what happens then is the game automatically starts, the timer starts and everything. And you're probably going to have to all leave the match and redo it again. So one of those reasons, hopefully, that you have had some preseason matches, or at least you are training your kids, is this is the screen they want to sit on before the game starts. Okay. So if I was part of the FH Knights, I would hit join FH Knights. If I was part of WAMS, I would hit join WAMS. 3v3, the playing starts. If you're streaming or coaching, or you're having a kid cast, they can hit spectate. And I always enjoy director mode when it comes to streaming or watching the match. But auto cam is a high level version you can watch for like practices, but director cam winds up being the most interesting if you're streaming a match or watching it yourself. But that's the basics of getting your private match started in Rocket League. All right. If you have any questions, please reach out.